Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. I want to pivot a little bit, though, to Kyrie Irving, and I thought about this. So, again, basketball is the artist sport. It's international soccer. It does matter how you play, not just that you score. And Messi's, Pele, just they're artists, and that there's absolute value in that. And same in basketball. Dr. J, stylistically, Magic was cooler than Bird. Michael Jordan was great looking, well dressed, super fun. Everything about MJ just felt big. Duncan was boring. And there's a reason, history's been kind of cruel to Tim Duncan, who's better than anybody wants to acknowledge, and nobody except people in San Antonio will acknowledge how dominating he was. He didn't have a lot of style. But Kyrie Irving played 8 games at Duke, no impact. Was kind of a bust pre-LeBron in Cleveland. Like, couldn't stay healthy, nobody liked him. Goes to Boston, doesn't work. Brooklyn, First, early in Dallas, you kind of weren't sure. And then he has this playoff run, and we're all like, this is great. So take out a couple of years with LeBron in his prime. LeBron made everybody look great. Everybody. And Kyrie bailed on that. In this great run, a no-show in the finals, and all over the map offensively. He had bad shooting nights. And I'm not giving you much in rebounding, assists, and defense. Like, he needs to shoot well. He's not Jaylen Brown, where you could tell me he's 4 for 14, and he'd have 8 rebounds, 7 assists, and play the hell out of the defensive end. That's not what Kyrie is. You need him to shoot. So, I look at Kyrie and I understand the finishing package. It's artistry. It's beautiful. No dispute. But even this playoff run, Anthony Davis gets criticized sometimes for being inconsistent. Not defensively. I get a star. And offensively, 3 out of 4 nights, I know what I get. I know LeBron loves Kyrie. AD's a more consistent star player. Jaylen Brown's a better basketball player. I thought Kyrie in these playoffs, his highs are so high, Jason, you can't take your eyes off it. It's a fireworks show. It's awe-inspiring. It's the singer hitting the highest note. But man, he throws out some stinkers. He was invisible for portions of this game. He didn't score in the first quarter. The most important quarter of the season for the Mavs, he didn't do anything. There's my Kyrie take, that his aesthetic beauty overshadows a lot of nights where he gives you, if he's not shooting well, he doesn't give you anything else at all.
Yeah, pretty consistently in my player rankings, I've had him right around that 20 spot when I'm ranking players. I'm generally higher on Kyrie than some people. There's a pretty substantial anti-Kyrie coalition out there for obvious reasons because of his off-court stuff. And one of the things with this particular team that I look at is I remember going into the series, there were people saying oh, what if Luka and Kyrie are the 2 best players in the series? And I'm like, whoa, hold on. Let's chill out. I like Kyrie. He's got this incredible upside, yes, which is what you're referring to, which is the fireworks show. But what he is he is an average to slightly above average kind of guard defender when he's playing hard, but he had a pretty bad defensive series. He is a guy that is a pull-up jump shooter. And so Guess what happens with pull-up jump shooters? Sometimes they go in. Sometimes they don't. And that to me is there's one pull-up jump shooter in NBA history who's just been reliably great in the postseason. That's Steph Curry. Yeah. You know what I mean? All the other guys, they're the freaky athletes that can get to the rim consistently and dominate the game physically in some way, shape, or form, right? And so honestly, because this is one of my big takeaways from Dallas, and I've been kind of feeling this way since the beginning of the series, but I don't think this Dallas Mavericks team is close. You kind of mentioned this in your opening.
I don't either.
Piece.
I don't either.
I don't think they're close. I think that they caught some really favorable matchups out in the Western Conference. I think they're good. I think there was a tier of teams beneath Denver where all the West was, and they managed to kind of weave their way through that with some favorable matchups, right? But I think Denver would have beaten them pretty soundly in the Western Conference Finals.
With Denver.
I think they would have gotten them.
And the other thing we have to admit, Jason, is because of Luka's ball usage, I felt like he wasn't healthy for the last two series. He looked fatigued. He looked beat up. So again, when Kyrie's not delivering, it becomes very Luka dominant. I thought he looked. I thought you were getting about 80% of Luka in this finals, and some of that's just when you're the guy, and it's little Jalen Brunson. It's like Jalen's great, but there are limitations to when Jalen went on that 40-point run, you're like, this isn't going to end well. Like he's just you can't be that dominant. You have to be able to, and that's why the Celtics work, is that Tatum wasn't good in the first two games. He and Brown were both good in game three. Tonight, Tatum was superior. I mean, there were nights that Derek White, Pritchard before the half, like it's symphonic watching Boston. They're just handing the baton off. Man, Luka, he had that baton out multiple times and nobody grabbed it. And I thought he looked, and I agree with you. OKC's only getting better. Denver's already favored. Boston's not getting significantly worse. Sixers have
Memphis will be back.
And by the way, keep your eye on what Houston's doing. They had a stretch this year where you're like, uh-oh, they're probably a veteran away. So listen, we've seen this before. It's like in the NFL, the loser of the Super Bowl, like most of the time, doesn't fare well. Like this felt like a magical moment in time for Dallas, but there's some real flaws here. We would both acknowledge that. It is too Luka dependent. That's what it feels. It does feel like that Cavs team that was really very LeBron played with great energy, if you remember. Zilgauskas, they played with tremendous energy. LeBron was captivating. They had streaky shooters on the wing, but then you watch them against San Antonio and you're like, all right, five of the best six players are all Spurs. And that's how I felt in this series. We're this close to crowning an NBA champion. I like the Celtics, by the way, in 6. Jaylen Brown's going to be my MVP, and I love the Celtics in game 1. But sign up 90 seconds. Put in the code Colin, COLIN. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you're a new customer, bet $5. That's it. Just bet $5, and you'll get $150 instantly in bonus bets. The code Colin, COLIN, shows them that you're a new customer to get $150 in bonus bets only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm leaning Celtics in 6, baby.
Yeah, I one of the things that I find fascinating, and I'm actually curious to get your take on this, like one of the things that is hard to do in a situation like this after you have a successful postseason run is to be realistic about how far you are away. And so, for instance, Lakers fans, last year, it's like, we made the Western Conference Finals. And I'm like, okay, well, like Golden State has always struggled against big athletic teams. Yeah. That was a pretty favorable matchup for you. And then also that Memphis team, young Ja Morant driving into Anthony Davis all series was obviously not going to work. So it's like you caught a couple of favorable matchups. Then you ran into a real championship level team in Denver and you got your ass kicked.
Right.
So you're not close, right? And so when I look at the Dallas piece, this is what I think about. Like when the circumstances are favorable, meaning like when Luka has obvious mismatches he can pick at the entire series, and then on the other end of the floor, when they can really load up the strong side and keep their rim protectors at the rim and hide Luka on the opposite end of the floor, they can get stops. But where I get concerned is how many times in NBA history have we seen a team led by two stars that are both at least combining for two bad defensive players that go win the title? It's exceedingly rare. And so one of the things that I wonder, I shouldn't say exceedingly rare.
It's never happened, ever.
Like I would say, I would even say like the case would be, what about Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, which I understand. But the flip side there is like even the two of them were not this type of like Jokic was a dominant defensive rebounder who could actually do some stuff in pick and roll coverages defensively, and Jamal Murray did his job, and he's bigger. But Jamal Murray's bigger.
They also had
an
elite
bigger,
defender
stronger.
right off that in Gordon, so they had. They accentuated, like, it's like the Mavericks or like the Warriors. They hid Steph, Iguodala, Clay. So you can get away with your star not being an elite defender, but you have to have elements. You have to have size, Jokic, athleticism, Gordon. Like that. That's not what this Dallas team is. It's their two stars are. Luka is disengaged a lot defensively.
Yeah, he was terrible in 4 of the 5 games of the series defensively. I thought he was bad again tonight. They were just bringing him up into the ball screen. He would just kind of stand around in no man's land. Drew Holiday would slip out of it. He'd get a layup. They'd get him on his. They're at the end of the first half, just like game 2. They just attacked him in switches time and time and time again and scored every single time. Like, it's a real issue. And so let me just pitch it back to you like this: is the version of a Luka Doncic led team that wins a title one day, is that version of that team constructed around Luka and then a secondary star that is an elite athlete that can impact the game more with his physical tools rather than with his skill? Because I wonder if this Dallas team is always going to be the kind of team that can beat certain matchups, but will always struggle against teams that can spread them out, just simply because that's just way too weak points in their defense. Do you think that that's what the direction they're going to have to go
I think
eventually?
literally a perfect player for Luka is Paul George. Probably privately doesn't want the final shot. Luka does. Excellent defender, long, willing, can give you 30 in non-pressure situations, could really have nights where Luka can almost take a back seat. But in the big moments, Paul sometimes takes weird shots or bad shots. Luka doesn't. Like, this is one of these things. It's a better story than a team. Kyrie's not the fit. A poor defensive player who's hot and cold and needs the ball. That's not the fit. The fit is a long wing defender who can score 30, but like a Pippen, has no problem letting the man shoot. Paul's always been Paul can hit the big shot, but it's like he can also back away from it. He's not a selfish player. So it's Paul George is one of those guys. He kind of works with everybody. I think, Paul's gotten a bad rap. I mean, he kind of fits everywhere. You go back to those Miami Heat series, Paul was working with Roy Hibbert, a non-scorer, George Hill, Frank Vogel, who loved bigs, not, got guards. They give Miami Wade and Bosh and Battier and LeBron. They gave them troubles. Those were really good series. So I just think it's one of those, Kyrie, Luka, the movie poster is better than the movie. I think they need a different star. And this is something I was told years ago by a GM, like 20 years ago. He said, it's not about the star, having a star in the league. There's a lot of them. It's the right star. And then once you get that star, the Warriors were brilliant. Here's Steph's deficiencies. Let's just layer it and protect him. It's like hockey. Our great scorer is a finesse player. Let's protect him. You have to protect. You don't have to protect Tatum. You have to augment some offensive, production. Porzingis, more scores. You don't have to protect Tatum. You have to protect Luka defensively. Like, I've said this. He's a much better Carmelo Anthony. He's much better, but disengaged defensively. Not sure he's in great shape. It's kind of, he's the sun. Everything revolves around it, sort of. So I'm not anti-Luka, but I don't see him being part of a dynasty. I just think he's a meteor. You just don't see stuff like this in the history of basketball. But all stars are not equal. Like, Duncan is exactly what you want your star to be, kind of. Boring, does everything well, doesn't have to take the final shot. In the end, sacrifice salary. Like, Duncan's never gotten the respect. Like, he literally did everything well except handle the ball. And what did they put around him? Parker, Manu, ball handlers. So I just think Luka's spectacular, but you have to protect him more than anybody wants to acknowledge. I guess that's my take.
Again, it's about acknowledging that you're not close. And so I think there's a bunch of different things that they have to address. The first piece is Luka specifically, and we talked about this a lot after game 3, has to get in better shape, has to make a commitment to the defensive end. Like, I want to see Luka come in next year and look different physically, because this is year after year that this has been an issue and that he's not made any sort of attempt to address. So that's the first piece of it. The second piece of it is, we've seen this consistently with Dallas. They've kept trying to build the same team around him, because we saw this with Brunson and Dorian Finney-Smith and that team that went to the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago. Like, they've built a team around 2-shot creators and then play finishers. And just like what happened against the Warriors in 2022, eventually they're like, actually, we're just kind of fine with Luka taking these, tough contested 2-point jump shots. His step back three just isn't reliable enough. Like once again, this entire postseason run, he just couldn't knock it down at a high enough rate. Like there's a lot of like games where he has 30 points on 27 shots, and you're like, this isn't actually something that's causing problems for the opposing team. And so like I look at it too, like one of the things I like about doing something like going after a Paul George or more of like a skilled, like a multi-talented forward, is it makes for less redundancy.
Right.
It makes it so that you can it makes you a different type of team to deal with on a possession by possession basis. Because what happens is when you lean on the Kyrie thing, it's like Kyrie has a rough series. Suddenly he doesn't bring anything else to the table. And now you look severely limited. And so I think in general, they've just got to have kind of like this self-awareness to acknowledge that they're not close and to make these structural changes. But one of the problems, Colin, is I don't think they're going to. And I think they're going to run it right back